Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to wake the world up to what's possible for healing, one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the amazing authors of a new book that we have coming out. This one is called Love Initiation, Learning the Language of Soul. And you guys, this was a special project. Our authors traveled from all over the world to Egypt, where we spent 2 weeks together exploring sacred sites with Egyptologist, easy for me to say, Emil Shaker and his phenomenal team and guides. It was transformational, and the book will have an extra special energy for our readers. So, before I introduce these beautiful women to you today, I'm going to say a huge thank you to John Mercedes and Julianne Santini, our lead authors of Love Initiation. You guys, thank you so much for your big vision for this book and the way that you curated the energy and support, gosh, almost a year before we left for that amazing adventure to Egypt. How you did that for us was really other level and amazing. And I know the readers are going to feel it. You're going to feel it today just listening to our authors. But huge thank you to John and Julianne for how they visioned this project. So, I have some pretty amazing people in my Zoom room today. Andrea Paquette is a holistic nurse practitioner, author, speaker, and life coach who works with women to heal, transform, and create a life they love. Barbara Fang Babcock makes a difference in people's lives as a spiritual teacher, artist, and writer. She listens between the lines with empathy and makes people laugh. Judy Rafe has spent many years supporting others as a life coach, teaching clients to tap into their own inner wisdom and connect with their true selves. And Nancy Casey Humphrey is an artist, healer, and teacher. She designs healing tools based on her practice of Ho'oponopono. All right, Nancy, help me out. Say it out loud for me.
Ho'oponopono.
Thank you. Reiki and integrated energy therapy. Ho'oponopono. I love that word. I swear I love that word. I will practice. All right.
That was pretty
Um,
good.
it's a good one. And I've practiced before. I just haven't practiced saying the term. I love that you have that in your bio because there are going to be a lot of people who don't understand what's possible in terms of healing and healing modalities. And you guys, that is part of why we're here today. Andrea, you're going to start us off today. Tell us about the amazing chapter that you wrote.
Thanks, Laura. My chapter is called Choosing to Love the Judgy One and Finding Your Power in the Mirror. And one of my big love initiations was that, where I realized how judgy I was. But I didn't know that because it was such a self-defense mechanism for so long. Um, so my chapter talks about some of my journey and things that I started to open up to and notice, and it helps people really start to have more self-awareness around judgment of others, judgment of themselves, and how to move past that.
So I want to play devil's advocate with you on this one, only because I've had conversations about judgment before with some people who will say to you something like, well, you can't get away from judging. We judge all day long. You have to judge to survive. What would you say to that?
Yeah, let's call that discernment. Discernment is when we look carefully at everything and decide what's best for us. Judgment is when we're critical or negative and we haven't really looked at the whole picture and we're not considering everybody else's um, experience in the world. And we don't know, we'll never know what everyone else experiences and how they were socialized and what kind of trauma they have. And so for my journey, it was about looking at finding that other people who were harsh or judgmental were hard for me to be around, and so I just judged them and avoided them. which made my life pretty small and made me more judgmental. So my chapter is about how to really see that in yourself. And if you want to open up and have some more ease and peace in your life and better relationships, that judgment's got to ease off a little bit. And that's what I talk about and how to help yourself do that.
Well, I love the D word of discernment. Seriously, it's a golden nugget of awareness. And I love how you brought that into this because there's so many things here with discernment, judgment, but you brought up with negativity. Like that helps me, and it'll probably help our listeners too. Like, as soon as you're in that, that's kind of a crummy energy to walk around with all day. What else do you want to say about that?
And part of the chapter also talks about um, feeling into your body, and that's how you know you're in a space that doesn't feel good and that maybe a space you don't want to be in so often. But I talk about managing the judgy people and then also managing your own judgment and noticing it and working with it, because both they go together. You notice, you judge other people for things that you are judging yourself about, so they're very connected.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited that we opened up today about this topic because it can change your life. This awareness, and all of our authors are going to be dropping these, I call them these golden nuggets. They're like ninja moves to me of awareness, and one of them could change everything for you. It's that good, you guys. Andrea, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Barbara, you're up next. Will you tell us about your amazing chapter? We got to get you unmuted, huh?
There it is.
There we
Okay.
go.
So mine is chapter 19, and it's called I Am the Hands and Feet, Walking Through the Fire with Archangel Michael. And at first, I wasn't sure what I was going to write about. And then I realized I needed to write about something that was really difficult for me to talk about. And so this is about um, something that changed my life. I sometimes call it the 4 minutes that changed my life. My husband has seizures and has a declining illness and other health challenges. And this was the big one where he literally left his body, and I didn't know what to do. So I literally called in the angels and the archangels and to help me. And he came back. And so that was a remarkable thing for both of us to experience, as well as how it changed our lives, because there are many people that are dealing with long-term illnesses and decline. Parents have it, spouses, things like that. But there's a way past it. And that was the key for me, was that I couldn't live in that, always in that space of the grief and the agony that was coming up, because we had had such a magical relationship. And the love was still there, and it needed to be expressed, and I needed to find it. We needed to find it with each other. And so that's kind of what that's my goal every day.
Oh my gosh. Sometimes I listen to y'all talk about these things, and as you're talking, you make it sound like this is so easy, but we all know that that was right, like beyond difficult. And I think you are all such warriors for the way that you show up in your lives. But for somebody who's going through that, what do you think is the most important thing you want them to know?
Be present. People ask me, I have a group of friends, don't do this alone. There are people out there that will support you and help you. There are friends that will call in, there are friends that have dropped by the wayside, but I can't do this by myself. And even if I don't have a physical person in front of me, I call in my archangels and my angels, and pray, do all kinds, whatever works for you. You can't do this by yourself. And also realizing that being present is what that person in front of you needs right in that moment. There's times my husband will get caught in a loop in his brain, and I'm looking at him and I'm just going, "Oh gosh, not again." Yes, we don't have any rice, but he's going, "But we don't have any rice, but we don't have any rice. Honey, it's okay." And there's something that drops in this empathy and compassion that I don't even know where it comes from, but I take a big deep breath and I'm able to open to that and know that being present in that space with him helps him, but it also helps me. I'm not going crazy in my brain going, there's 4 million things over here that need to be done. So I think being present is the best thing you could do for anybody in that space because that's all they have is that exact moment right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just talked about the magic of life in general, right? Just little things here today, you guys, just little things. Oh my goodness. Oh, they're such big things. Give us a quick sneak peek into the practice you're sharing in the chapter.
The practice is I used in this one is a prayer. Um, and it's kind of a meditation prayer, whatever you want to use it for. Um, but I call in the angels and the archangels when I need that extra support. It's like they're my boosters. Always know that I've got support. Always know that I'm not alone. Um, and for years I didn't realize I was doing this until a friend of mine said, "No, you always do." And it was beautiful for me to recognize that. She said, "That's your superpower. You are able to call in whatever, energy you need to be in that space." And I want other people to recognize that too, is that at any time you can call in whatever that essence is for you, whatever you call it, um, to support you, and that the universe is there. It's got your back. We just have to open to it. And that's really what this is about.
Barbara, thank you for being here today. For all of you listening too, you're going to not only get to read these incredible stories, but then the master teachers in this book are stepping up to offer those practices for you so that you have those tools. You can have an experience with their magic. And Barbara, that in terms of being able to verbalize, write even, and or verbalize a prayer that is powerful and well spoken and feels like it connects you with that proper energy. This is also no small potatoes thing, right? And so I really appreciate that with your chapter in terms of just offering that to our readers.
Thank you.
Judy, tell us about your chapter. You ready?
Yeah. So my chapter is chapter 12, Dis-ease as the Doorway to Love, the Gifts of Cancer. And my chapter started out as just my talking about um, my journey with breast cancer in 2021, where I made a very conscious effort and decision about how I was going to move through that journey. And some very, very powerful things came out of it for me. Um, a lot of life lessons, a lot of um, confirmations of things that a part of me didn't want to believe about other people in my life. And it kind of morphed as we went on the journey in Egypt, for me to then learn that things can happen in an instant. Your whole life can change in an instant, either with a diagnosis or just an experience. Um, and I came away from the trip very different than when I stepped into it.
So, you know, it's one thing to get a diagnosis like that, and for people who are listening who are have experienced that maybe, how do you go from the the suckiness of it to an attitude that there are possibilities and opportunities for you in that experience and having that diagnosis. This is not an easy thing. What would you want to tell somebody about that?
I think the first thing I would tell someone is to give themselves the space to deal with the oh my God moment and to really let yourself take that in. And then to reach deep inside and or reach out to whoever you need to find that faith and that trust. For me, it was years of spiritual practices to keep going back and saying, what's going to work here? The first thing I did didn't work. So I had to go find another and to reach out to other people. I think that was probably for me the most empowering and important thing was to recognize there were people in my life that wanted to support me and that I had to allow that. That was the other big piece, is that I had to allow other people to support me.
Receiving like that is also not easy. um I wonder if there's anything you want to offer in terms of like how you actually opened yourself up to receiving the first few times.
The first thing I did was to recognize that I knew nothing about this journey I was about to step into. And I reached out to a couple of colleagues that were breast cancer survivors and very simply said, tell me 3 things I need to know. And was able to take that and sit with those 3 things that were very basic, and then move through it step by step. You know, some days for me it was just putting my feet in the grass and breathing. Sometimes it was journaling. Sometimes it was just sitting and having a good cry. But
Judy, thank you. Go ahead. I didn't interrupt.
I was just gonna say, just not knowing that there was no one clear set path for every day was really
Yeah.
important.
And being open to what that might be. Thank you so much. Thanks for writing about that difficult topic. And thank you for being here today. Nancy, your turn. Tell us everything about your chapter. Well, maybe not everything. What's the
I
brief
have to leave
version?
something to read.
Yes.
My chapter is chapter 23, Love and Acceptance, Letting Go of Fear and Becoming Your Authentic Self. And I wrote about coming out to my daughter when she was 19 years old. She's 27 now, so this was just 8 years ago. But I had decided at about that time to divorce my husband, and it felt like I was divorcing my entire family because I was about to drop this bomb, this news on my children that, you know, I'm not only divorcing your father and moving out of the house, but I'm gay. And so the love and acceptance part was really about loving myself enough to accept that it was going to be okay. Like the change that I was making to accept myself the way that I am was going to allow me to actually live and change my life in big ways. And so when I was trying to decide, well, what do I write about for this chapter? I was like, well, what's the hardest thing that you could show somebody that really netted the best result? And it really is my relationship with my children. Sorry.
Mm.
And so when I wrote this, we were on the Nile, and I was totally going to write about something else. I'd actually talked to like 2 or 3 people about it. This is what I'm going to write about. And then I sat down, I started typing, and it just totally changed. And this is the story that came out. And it was the hardest thing to write, right? Because it really was about letting go of that fear, that false evidence appearing real, that somehow everybody that I loved was going to see me differently. Did not happen at all. And so that's kind of what this story was about, was that you you really can't change other people, but you can change the way you see the world yourself. And so by letting go of this fear and becoming myself, I was able to be there for all these other big events in my family's lives. I talk about the birth of my grandson and being able to slip down into my own intuition and knowing I'm supposed to be there. And then in the story, I talk about why, um, and how eye-opening it was to me to by not allowing myself to. And like Andrea's judgy chapter, I love it. I love everything about it. I resonated with that so much. Not judging myself that I'm not welcome into their lives anymore, but just really feeling that love and acceptance.
And that was such a beautiful chapter. You got us into the scene and had us feeling the feels of that. And I don't know, it may sound kind of corny, but I was so proud of you in that scene. I'm like, yes, like, I don't know, it takes some courage. I'll say it a lot of times. You all are warriors of just because you are willing to show up and figure it out. Sometimes you don't have the courage first. You have to take some action with that feeling inside of you. Right? What else do you want to tell people about making the hard step towards something they're afraid of?
Well, the catalyst for me really was turning 50 and thinking, what do I want the next 25 years, 35 years of my life to look like? And so instead of looking backwards, just really looking forward and manifesting and thinking about what you want your experience to be in your life and understanding that you have 100% control over that. And so just be very clear about what you want when you set those intentions, and they'll happen.
Sometimes that's the scary part, is realizing that you have control over that, or that the job really is to take 100% responsibility for making the choices. It's like you
Hmm.
get to create this by making each choice, right? And some people, ooh, that's scary. For me, it's like, oh, that's freedom.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nancy, thank you for being here today.
No,
And
thank you.
huge thank you to all of you. Thanks not just for saying yes to this, but like taking up the challenge I gave you to put your hearts and souls, take them out and put them on those pages. You all did that so brilliantly. And I mean, listen to the topics just of today's authors, you guys. Like, these are big topics, these are world changing, life changing kinds of things. The stories and then the practice that each author offers. It's one thing to teach people. You all do it. You're all master teachers. You help your clients. You do this every day, but to have someone say, "Okay, now I want you to write it in black and white in a book in a way that somebody actually gets it and it works," right? And again, you all did it so brilliantly. So thank you for that. Barbara, you get the next question first. So, love initiation, learning the language of soul. What's the most important thing you want people to know about the language of their soul?
For me, the language of my soul is a lot of times what I call my intuition, but it's louder. There's times when it speaks to me and I'm not listening, it gets very loud. And um, and I know that that language is the true essence of who I am. It's not an ego thing. It's not a you should do this, you're wrong about that. It's this is your path. This is where you should be. This is this is the voice is very clear and always consistent for me. And when I listen, it takes being quiet for me because my brain has a million things going on in it at a time. And because I'm a caregiver, I'm busy doing a lot of things. And I teach and, have many things going on in my life. So for me, it's getting quiet and listening to that small voice that's there in the back always. And again, it's like I said before, you're not alone. Your soul is always with you. And if you listen, there's an immense wisdom there that comes through.
I love the way that you started off that question. Um, all right, Judy, you're next up on this. What is the most important thing you want people to know about the language of their soul?
For me, it took a really long time to understand what that was. And I think what I would want people to know is that for everyone, it can be different. I don't think any two people hear things or know things exactly the same. And it's really finding a daily practice of some sort that helps you get in touch with that inner who am I, that inner soul piece.
I 100% agree. And gosh, it's actually the reason for these collaborations, you guys, because I want to hear all the unique voices and ways. I want to hear it from every one of you, all of the different ways, right? Because what Judy said was true for me too. I didn't know for a really long time what the heck was going on. And I had to hear people talk about it and read about it, and I needed to practice it. And I'll go back to what Barbara said. I had to get still for sure. I had to get quiet, right? So, ladies, you're awesome. I love having these conversations. Nancy, what do you want to add? Like, what else do you want people to know about the language of their soul?
Yeah, I would just say that one of the best things I've done is taking a meditation practice to really get still and quiet and find that peace, to hear the inner voice, and to calm everything about the nervous system and find that peace so you can really tap into your own inner voice and your angels and your guides.
And there's another layer of it too. This is why one of my favorite questions is what else is possible? Because as Judy said, there's so many different ways, and maybe you just haven't heard the way yet. Maybe you haven't learned how to talk to the angels yet. Just saying. Andrea, what do you want to add about this? What's important for people to understand about the language of their soul? And unmute, girl, unmute so we can hear your words.
I had the cursor right on it and forgot. I was listening carefully because it's so much the same for me. You have to be purposeful and want to hear it. And getting still, getting quiet, meditation, whatever it needs to be. But most of our nervous systems are high level a lot of the time, and we have a lot of thoughts, especially if you are quite thought oriented, and your mind leads you, then you have multiple thoughts going on. But to discern what is the soul, um, I believe the soul is out here. My soul is this huge thing, and a piece of it, or I feel like my soul is in different bodies, and a piece of it is in my body. So this is a vehicle for my soul to express in this lifetime through this body. This body, this environment, these people. I'm automatically where I'm supposed to be. So that's a given belief, and then listening and getting quiet and discerning, which takes time. Is this my inner child talking? Is this my own wisdom talking? Is this my soul talking? And the soul, like I think Barbara said, to me is clear and concise. And you kind of know, it's like, oh, okay, this is someone going like, oh, nope, right here. This is it. This is the thing. Um, and it feels like solid and real and the right answer, sort of. Um, even if you don't like it, even if it's like scary, like, oh, okay, I have to go in this direction. Yep, you do.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to understand about it. For me, I think 90% of the time it's easy and moving me toward love and gratitude and joy. And I can feel that in my body. I can feel the ease of it in my body. And sometimes there's a message about something I'm afraid of. I call it that purpose driven fear because there's always excitement and a movement toward the love and the joy and the gratitude anyway, even though there's that other feeling of, ooh, this is a little scary, So for me, I want to have a part of my answer be you got to ground yourself when you're getting still and quiet ground into your body to this place where that message might be moving through you to feel and feel everything. You guys feel everything because that's the way, right? If you can feel the deep sadness, you can also feel the amazing joy, and you'll need to feel it all to get there. Um, okay, so Judy, I'm coming to you for this next one now because I know that we could be here for 3 hours each on this next question. I am going to model it. Okay, so I need it brief, ladies. Travel is transformational for so many reasons. Travel is amazing, right? On this journey. I would love for you to inspire us with one of the powerful moments you remember from your journey in Egypt, right? One, okay? So, how I want to model this is the morning I was walking up to the Hatshepsut temple at sunrise with the group, and I looked up and turned around and saw the sun just peeking over. And then I turned back, and the entire temple and the cliffs that hold it were golden. And I had my first ever notion of a past life ever. In my 55 years, that happened to me in Egypt. And that's it. That's all I'm going to tell you today. So, Judy, I want one moment like that.
So funny that you say past life because I had a past life Egypt experience, and my big moment, one of my big moments in Egypt was when we were in the king's chamber and we had the opportunity to climb in and lie in the sarcophagus. And I had been challenged with this past life and how what I knew of it. And lying in the sarcophagus, as I was feeling all the feels from that past life, which was in Egypt, all of a sudden I was envisioning darkness, and all of a sudden the darkness just dissipated, and there were thousands of angels just supporting me, loving me. And then I had the great gift of actually opening my eyes and having earth angels loving me, supporting me, and being there.
Ooh, are you guys feeling the goosebumps yet? All right. I needed a kind of a redo of our trip. It feels like it's been a year since we were there together, and it's only been months. Like what is this time warp that we've been in? I love it, Judy. Thank you. Nancy, tell me one of yours.
Yeah, well, you're kind of describing the temple that really resonated with me the most, surrounded by the canyon, sun hitting the temple as we walked up to it, uh, and then turning around and seeing all the hot air balloons taking off at sunrise and knowing instantly we are going to do that before John and Julianne ever even invited us. Because every other temple experience that I had, I was floating up towards the ceiling during any chanting or singing or any of the spiritual practices that we were doing within the temples. I was always feeling so floaty. And then I was like, of course, we're going up in hot air balloons. It was just such a nice, you know, way to kind of end that part of the trip, was to actually float up in the hot air balloon with all of these wonderful people. And I've had people ask me did you have a moment's hesitation? Like, did you not think about the fact that you were in a hot air balloon with that many people? And I was like, I was in a hot air balloon with the perfect people to be up in a hot air balloon with. We were all rising together as a group, and it just was, I mean, talk about uplifting. The metaphors just don't stop. And it was sunrise. So that will always stay with me.
Yes, I would imagine that's a ditto from all of us on that one. Incredible, incredible experience. Huge thank you to John and Julianne again for gifting us that one amazing experience. Andrea, how about you? Tell us about one of your moments.
Yeah, I first want to say hot air balloon ride was on my bucket list for my lifetime, and I was so thrilled that they gave that to us as a surprise. They're just never-ending generosity. So my experience was in the temple of Isis, and I was just so moved by the whole story and the feeling in the temple. And when we all split up, and Julianne said, "Go to the place that calls you," and I went to the Osiris chamber because I had been so emotional during this trip. And I consider myself highly on the feminine side and kind of lacking on the masculine. So I said, I'm going to go to the Osiris chamber where there's more masculine energy. Um, and I went into a corner and I was touching the wall just slightly because I don't want to damage the walls. Um, but and I started crying again. And I'm crying because all this love just filled me, just plain old love, like not for anything or anybody or anything particular in my mind, this huge love. And then I just went into sort of regret that I hadn't felt this before, that all the times where I could have expressed so much more love in my life, um, and hadn't. Um, because I didn't know it. I wasn't connected to it. And so I was sort of in a trance, and I was just there with my feet on the ground. I try to feel into my body to sort of ground myself, and just feeling sort of vibrating all over, and lived in that love with tears streaming down my face for several minutes.
Thank you for sharing that. What a nice reminder to spend your moments today with that opportunity of being love at that level for yourself and anyone you come into contact with today, you guys. Like, what a gift. Barbara, how about you? Tell us one of your moments in Egypt.
Well, like everybody else, I think I had many moments, but the one that kind of woke me up was in the Temple of Isis, and it was one of our first days there. And my experiences as a child was to have these visions of Egypt and ancient Egypt. And I used to tell stories and have this understanding. And it wasn't until I was much later in life that I recognized those were past lives I was experiencing. And I could feel the wind on my face, and I could feel, the sand beneath my feet, and I could feel the stone and the temperature outside. And when we were there and Julianne said, walk around and find some place that's familiar, it all felt familiar. And yet I didn't quite connect to it until the sun rose. And I stood on the side, and I felt the sun on my face, and I just felt home. It was just like, I've been here. Okay, so now I need some more time to walk around here because I have this ability sometimes to be able to see things from other times, and I could see it differently. I could see where it wasn't like it was today, it was like it was then. And the descriptions of what people were talking about, it was like, yeah, no, I understand this. And it was inside, it wasn't outside, it was in the temple, it was in the Osiris chamber, it was in the other chambers. I was definitely in there, and it just felt so comforting, and I just felt so alive. But the sun brought that in, and it as it hit my face, I could smell it, I could feel it, and it wasn't just from this time. So it was just, what a gift that was. And I had that again at other places too.
There were so many, weren't there, you guys? Like, just so many moments we could share today. So many. And so I think it was actually a really big gift to be at many of these places before the sun came up for lots of these reasons. Also, strategy, like to get there before everyone else in the world was touring the sites, right? And we were so lucky to be able to do that. But there was something, I am a sunrise gal for sure. So for me, just felt extra magical. All right, so I have one more question for all of you today. Nancy, I'm going to start with you. You know, brave healer authors have dedicated their lives to this healing journey. You all have made that journey and dedicated your lives to helping people. I'm so grateful and honored to be on this path with all of you. You practice awareness at a level that impresses me every day. So, on a day when everything feels impossible and overwhelm is kicking in, I wanted you all to share a simple practice that helps you and might help our listeners if they're having one of those kinds of days. Nancy, what would your one practice be?
Well, I'm going to use that long word again, Ho'oponopono. Um, it's just so simple for me to start saying those four phrases in my head, and they instantly start recentering me. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And for me, it's just a way to say whatever it is within me that is causing these problems right now, I release it over to the divine. And it takes a lot of repetition and it takes a lot of practice for me to get to that space. Um, and by that, I just mean I've been practicing this for a long time. So I found a way, I found something that resonates with me that works. And so that's what I would say to people. As we've talked about, there are so many different spiritual practices, so many different modalities. If you can figure out what works for you, what is that thing that centers you and allows you to let go of whatever's triggering you on those difficult days, because we're all going to run into difficult people, but we don't need to take that on.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Andrea, you're next on this one. What's the one practice you want to offer the listeners today if they're having that day of overwhelm?
For me, overwhelmed and crowded days that are just feel like you can't get through really affect my body. And if I go to help my body, meaning just sit and try to clear my mind, get grounded, I'll do a walk outside, um, or sit in my favorite place and just remind myself that I'm in charge of me. I'm in charge of my life. I can make all the decisions because overwhelm for me comes from I feel a need to help more people than I really am able to, or do more things. And I'm the one who's chosen to be in an overwhelmed space. So I'm the one that has to fix it. And instead of being sort of helpless about it, um, I help myself come into myself and say, you know, I can I can work with myself to get into a quiet space and settle myself and then decide what do I need and what do I want today. And I'll take stuff off my calendar. I'll just fix it.
I love it. I love uncalendaring myself. Barbara, how about you? What's a simple practice you want to offer to our listeners today?
Well, a lot of times I work with caregivers and people who are going through incredible amounts of grief, loss, those kind of things, especially in my own. And those days when it is incredibly tough, I find that I'm stuck in my head and what do I need to get done and how do I get out of this? And, similar to what Andrea said, how do I do this? What do I do? And so for me, what works is recognizing that I'm stuck in my head, first of all, or I have this incredible amount of emotion that's coming out, which is great to emote. You have to share your and have your emotions when you're grieving and when you're caretaking. It can be really frustrating. And and so what I'll do is I'll recognize that I'll just put my hand on my heart and bring it down and bring all of that, and it kind of calms me. But one step further from bringing it into my heart is putting my hand on my belly. And when I put my hand on my belly, it just brings it down into my body, and it really settles me in a way that, okay, I can get through this in this moment and be present. And yes, I need to have those emotions and I need to do that. But right in this moment, I can't do that in this space. So it's kind of like putting it on hold and at the same time knowing it's there and acknowledging that it's there, but the body is calms the body. This really calms the body in a physical way. And it just feels so good for me. And it's a practice that I've done for years, and I really appreciate having to be able to do it. The other thing that works for me is finding something to laugh about. And this is what my husband has to remind me of often. And he makes me laugh. And then he said, "No, but you make me laugh." And if you can find that switch in there that is just something unusual or silly that's in the moment, um, it really can shift a lot of things and really make you feel better. So
Definitely
thank you.
phenomenal practices, gals. Judy, you're going to close us out today. Give us your simple practice that you want the listeners to know.
So my practice when I'm feeling overwhelmed is very different. I will go outside if there's not 2 feet of snow on the ground, and stomp my feet and then just connect to the earth and just allow myself to feel that energy, coming up and coursing through my body. Um, and if that's not possible, it's dance. I will just put on some crazy beat and just jump around and move and just get whatever that overwhelm is or whatever, and just let it get out of my body physically. And then I can put on music and I can stop and I can settle. But for me, I can't just settle right away. I need to physically get it out first.
I love that one. I would imagine we all love all the ones that you talked about today. I think I'm just going to add the journal and a pen to what all of you said. Then get that notebook out, write it out. I love the dance and music. I use that one a lot. I love connecting with nature, grounding, centering, getting out of your head and into your body. I mean, listen to these nuggets of wisdom, everybody. One simple shift with these tools can change your energy immediately, quick. It doesn't have to take forever. Andrea, Barbara, Judy, and Nancy, thank you so much for what you do in the world. And thank you for being here today to share it with everyone. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Laura.
So, to all of our listeners, I know something that was said today maybe gave you the goosebumps. Maybe you have a question, or maybe you're just like, you can't wait to carry on the conversation. This is so much more than a book. This is a generous community of amazing expert master teachers. Drop down into the show notes, you guys, because I have everybody hooked up with their websites. Go explore what they're up to, because it's amazing and a lot. And they're there for you. You can reach out and get the support for that next step that you might need to take. And of course, you're all invited to our book launch party, February 14th, of course, Valentine's for Love Initiation. We're going to have a party. It's going to be at 10 a.m. Eastern. I've got information down below about the party that you can join on Zoom. And if you're listening to this interview after that date, that means that the book is ready and live on Amazon. You can go grab your copy today. Lastly, today, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it is time to be brave. See you next time, everyone.